Alrighty, hello everyone and welcome to today's ANA webinar. My name is Christina Batista with the ANA and I'll be your host for today's session. Before we begin, I'd like to start out with a few quick housekeeping items. To participate in today's session, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to submit questions for today's presenters. You should also see a chat button at the bottom of your screen. Please use this function to report any technical issues or to make any general comments on today's topic. Feel free to submit questions at any time, and we'll get to as many as possible at the end of the presentation. A PDF version of the presentation and the recording of this webinar will be available for viewing and posted for ANA members on the ANA website within a few days. And lastly, I would like to remind everyone that following today's presentation, you'll be receiving a brief survey. If you could just take a few minutes to give us your feedback, we'd really appreciate it. So with that, and for those just joining, welcome again, and thanks for tuning in to today's webinar. How a rigorous measurement and optimization process moved JCPenney marketing forward. I'd now like to turn it over to Jamie Glover, VP of Client Success at OptiMine, and Bill Cunningham, VP of Marketing at JCPenney, to begin today's session. Jamie and Bill?
Excellent. Thanks, Christina. All right, as Christina said, I'm Jamie Glover, VP of Client Success at OptiMine. For those who don't know OptiMine, OptiMine is a media mix modeling company that has taken a really innovative approach to measurement. We have built a really sophisticated software that's kind of disrupting this traditional MMM space. So what that means, just real quick for our advertisers, our brands, our clients, is that we are able to really keep up with the fast-paced changing world of marketing. And we provide a really detailed read on measurement. On media, I should say. So we can measure down to creative or campaign and provide really detailed optimization guidance for our clients. What we are excited to talk about today, however, is what we talk about at OptiMine as the science of success. And this is the idea that our measurement technology and solutions are only as good as the people who turn those insights into action, and the process that is built around really taking measurement and incorporating it into your marketing strategy and your media planning and buying processes. So with me today, Bill Cunningham and JCPenney, are partners of OptiMine. We've had the pleasure of working together for the last 5 years. And what I'll share is that we've just been continuously impressed with the JCPenney team and how they have built a really rigorous practice around measurement. We kind of hold them up as best in class when it comes to having a leadership team who really values the role of marketing analytics, and then really a great core working team who works fast, makes decisions. They put in place tests and are constantly evaluating and measuring, and really are trying out new marketing initiatives. So excited today for you to hear more about the JCPenney approach. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Bill.
Thanks, Jamie. I appreciate it, and appreciate everyone joining in and watching this after on the recording. I think it's a really fun topic to talk about. I've been with JCPenney for 11 years, and I think what we've been able to do in media optimization is really exciting. And so what I'm going to do today is kind of focus on 3 key areas of strategic planning and how we use media mix modeling, and how it's kind of fundamentally changed the way that we discuss media optimization within JCPenney. And so I recognize that some of you are different size organizations with different paths on the journey to media optimization and improvement. And so I hope that by the end of the session here today, there will be something that you'll be able to take away from it, as I'll speak through the lens of how we've optimized this within JCPenney and how it's helped us really kind of tweak our media optimizations. And so to start with, I'm going to spend some time on the adoption of marketing measurement. I'm going to really focus in on kind of some of our core lessons learned and the things that we've set in motion for transparent measurement of optimization in media. Critical to our success was making change. And so I'll take a few minutes to spend some time today on the importance of adoption through change management. After all, we're talking about spending money. And at least here in my organization, that's always a fun topic of conversation with lots of parties involved and lots of people interested in making sure that we're getting the most out of the dollars that we're spending in our marketing. And then we'll finish off our time together here. I'll close with some examples of how we found success in the past 2 years and how our open-minded approach to media measurement and optimization has produced some surprising results that really has forced our team to think differently about the changing landscape of media and marketing. So with that foundation, I'll step into the first slide here. And as I said, for the last 11 years of my career here at JCPenney, I've led various parts of marketing through my time here. And I can say that, we've continuously improved on our abilities to measure, and we hold ourselves accountable to the total marketing efforts. But our current state, where we are today, and what I'll spend my time discussing today, didn't start that way. It's been a journey for sure. And so as we set out to implement media mix modeling, and more importantly, the adoption of trusted data and processes, we tried several different approaches of getting the teams organized. And so I'm going to start with the organization piece here. And, as we've worked our way through several different approaches, I found that setting up the teams and defining who's responsible for owning the media modeling was an initial important component as we went into the test and measure, or into the measurements here. Now, early on, we established a steer code, and Jamie mentioned that, and some of the leadership buy-in to this. And really, it wasn't just a steer code of just the marketing individuals. It consisted of data science members, media team leaders, and the broader marketing leadership. One of the things that we found was this really helped ensure that within both the marketing department, that we were applying our collective knowledge and strategies to continuous optimization, but it also allowed us to have a voice from outside of the marketing department. And I'll touch on that a little bit more here in just a minute. For example, we've focused on different objectives through the years. And so, whether we've been building brand awareness or focused on strictly performance, these objectives have required us to have a really open collective conversation on challenging what we want into and out of our model and how we interpret that data and the results to make sure that we apply them to future executions. So I'll take the opportunity to state here, though, that it's been my experience that this topic is as much art as it is science. Having that diverse group of minds in that steerco has been really important to us in helping us interpret the insights and help us ensure that we're not just blindly applying the insights from the tools, but rather customizing our next steps based on what is best for the total organization. So in addition to the steerco, and in my opinion, just as important is the team design. I will tell you, in the early days of implementing media mix modeling, I personally had a very strongly held opinion that media mix modeling could not and should not be managed by the media team. It was kind of the proverbial fox watching the henhouse concern that I had. It kind of question came to mind: how could our media team, be responsible for optimizing spending the media dollars and also managing the inputs of the tools that, as we found out through the years, actually challenge some of our pre-established biases and our pre-established understandings of how the media mix is working in our portfolio. And so we started with the media mix modeling tool, and its responsibility for its outputs was actually our marketing analytics group. We were able to achieve independent reporting and separation of responsibilities, but what I found in our organization is it created some conflict, not discussion. And so interestingly enough for us in the setup today, the MMM is actually owned and managed by the media team. It's a function of the media team, and they're fully accountable to and own the updates, share out the results, educate the broader organization on the results, and really are in charge of indicating what actions are we going to take next into testing. So in this time, it's my experience that we've actually created a media team that is more curious, more empowered, and really always excited about getting the latest updates to build future test plans. And I'll come back to this in a minute as well. And then lastly, I think in the organization piece of it, one of the things that we found early on is it's important to make sure that you establish what is important to be measured and clearly define how often it is that it's worth looking at these certain KPIs. Today, we optimize our media strategy on a return on spend model, which is predominantly, with us predominantly being a performance marketing organization, we still have to balance that that tension between return on immediate spend as well as driving brand results for both stores and online. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time today on this specific section other than to say that make sure that your organization is completely aligned with the KPIs and that you set realistic expectations of how often that you refresh and utilize this measurement information. In our example, we refresh our model quarterly, but honestly, using it as a strategic planning tool, we often use rolling 12-month data to inform our decisions. Now, the second big bucket here on the screen today, it may be obvious to many of you, is really been using the media mix model. We've been using the media mix model for a while. I can say that where we are today is much more advanced than where we would have thought we were when we started. We've looked at this as kind of our in-state definition as more of an evolving target versus a set it and forget it. So setting near-term goals for the model and building onto them over time has been a key component of how we operationalize the use of our MMM. For us, the complexity of connecting all of our data feeds to the model really forced us to do a complete inventory of our capabilities. Some of our data sources weren't readily available. Others were available in automatic feeds. And so when we started this journey and this path, we had to take some time to really determine what was most important for our objectives, our KPIs. But one thing I'd like to leave with everyone is don't wait for perfect. Through the years, we've continuously added in new data streams. We've refined the granularity and other data streams on other data streams, giving us a more detailed view of media, all the way at publisher levels, for example, and as Jamie mentioned, even into segment levels and specific objectives that we may set up from time to time, such as measuring traffic versus sales. As I noted a minute ago, though, this is an evolving state of in-state definition. So taking a long-term strategy has been really important to us and making sure that we're continuously evolving as we go from quarter to quarter. As I was getting this ready, I kind of, was reflecting back on our first MMM results, and I was there for it, and we sat around the table and I took the insights in. And at the time, we really thought it was a great view, right? It gave us immediate optimization ideas. But for us, really, the power of implementing the model has come out of a constant iterative improvement season after season. So I don't know that I have to tell everyone here, but the space is constantly changing, and each refresh gives us something new to learn. So taking a view on the short-term end states may seem somewhat counter convention here, but it's really helped us continue to iterate and optimize. Lastly, in adoption, I have to hit on the importance of openly sharing. One of the things that's really been successful in our organization is making sure that everyone in the org has a clear understanding of what the role of the media mix model is in our total planning. In our organization, I'm constantly reminding people that the media model is a critical tool in our strategic planning, and that it's not in and of itself the proverbial silver bullet, right? Like it's not the single answer. But we're very careful to make sure that we help the organization understand that it's a very complex topic, and the media mix model in our use is our first stop in identifying optimization, test ideas, overall measurement of media impact on our business. It isn't our only data source, but it is an extremely important one and plays a role in our broader ecosystem of marketing optimization. We've created an open book approach of sharing data here at JCPenney. And so I mentioned at the start that I operate in an organization that's got a lot of stakeholders. And so as I've found, making the results available across the organization has been very helpful for us, whether it's sharing with the finance department, in my world, the merchandising department partners, or even into our creative teams. It helps the entire organization have a broader understanding of what the data is being used for and how it's driving decisions. And so I think it's important to define where the data is being used. And for us, it's mostly strategic purposes to drive tactical decisions. And what I mean by that is the output of our MMM actually leaves us with more why and what if questions than specific directed answers of how we move forward. It's we have other tools in our data set that we use for making daily decisions and optimizing on a daily basis. But what the model gives us is something that really challenges the team to think more broadly around the entire ecosystem. And so on the next slide, I'll shift gears into kind of change management. Because I think one of the biggest challenges that I get when we utilize the media model is the fear or the lack of understanding of what I'll call the black box of the data. And I'm sure I'm not the only person that has to deal with this, but I can tell you from my experience here at JCPenney, the number of times that the model has been questioned or challenged, or curious individuals have come along wanting to understand more deeply how the model arrives at the output. I can't count them. And interestingly enough, for me over time, it continues to prove out as a very accurate indicator of media effectiveness for us. It's one of those areas that if you're entering into this area, I would leave you with a few things that I believe have helped JCPenney along the way. And first is the acknowledgement that the media mix modeling tool is a tool that the data output is limited by the data input. And really setting those expectations up front, I think, are really important. As I mentioned on the previous slide, this is where the setup is important, and making sure that the alignment with the organization is critical. The model can't optimize something that it doesn't experience. And so it kind of creates this space where, as a marketer, we have to make sure that we're using the art part that I mentioned earlier as interpreting some of the data and applying it into those questions of what am I really seeing here, what if, and why are we seeing data like this? So strong knowledge of the data is a requirement. And one of the things that we've implemented here on our side is within our teams, we have individuals who are intimately knowledgeable of the data that is going into the model, so that we can have conversations around what the output is showing. Does it have the knowledge or the input on the front end to actually inform the decision? And if not, we iterate over time to improve the model. Secondly, as I mentioned previously, is share, and share. The challenges and questions that we get, I view as opportunities to create understanding and improvements in the model. I've sat down with PhD mathematicians who have been through here at JCPenney at times, and in my time, as we go through this, their questions help us gain confidence and understanding in the model in total. So I think it is a key component of this. Making sure that it's not a hidden little box off to the side has been very successful in us, in making sure the organization kind of rallies behind the learnings here. And lastly, I'll hit on what I'm calling the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I'll tell you that I can recall more than once where we sat in a quarterly update and we were shocked by some of the specific results coming through on our model. We had members of our teams say things like, well, that doesn't make sense, or I can't believe that this media channel is performing in a certain way. And interestingly enough, as an organization, I've really taken the approach that most of the beneficial data that we can get from our media model is actually the data that shocks us. And so makes us ask questions of why, and does this confirm or does this challenge our previous beliefs? It's hard sometimes. I know, I give my media team a ton of credit because they've really started to embrace the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I would say in total, they actually now kind of look forward to that unexpected data in the media results. And that really drives test ideas to either confirm or dispute findings. And really, at the end of the day, taking those results that we didn't understand is what's really helped us propel forward in our media improvements. And so moving into the last part here of what I wanted to cover today is kind of the adoption approach. And this works for JCPenney. Certainly isn't intended to be the only approach, but it's just what's worked for us. And so to this point, I've discussed the setup, mentioned how we are continuously improving the model. And this chart here really broadly illustrates how we approach the model views. I mentioned that we get updates and reads quarterly, and this is sufficient for us because between reads, we really focus on optimization, testing, and improving the model in areas that are important to our overall objectives. And so with the start, we perform a quarterly update with both of our media teams and our steerco. We question the outputs, we note the changes since the prior update, and we identify areas that spike interest or conversation. We then move into a time between refreshes and kind of refocus any campaign or media vehicles on optimization objectives. For example, our media vehicle focus on driving performance. They're heavily evaluated on return on ad spend improvements from quarter to quarter, while our branded focused efforts may have a longer term view, and we may not take immediate action on them in the model refresh. But we'll take the time to make budget shifts as necessary. We'll update the finance team on anticipated upside risks or upsides or risks in the overall company plan. And for me personally, the most exciting part of the process is the identification of test conditions. Our media team, through the use of media mix modeling, has really adopted this really robust test plan methodology. And so we have an ongoing list of test conditions that are heavily informed through our quarterly updates with our media mix model. And we'll perform over 50 media tests a year. Some of them are small and quick, others are month-long media tests. But really the punchline here is that the learnings from those tests are then fed back into the media mix model and gives us the next quarter's optimization goal in line. So it's a constant movement of work. It doesn't start and end, but rather is a core function of our total media team, and it is how they approach their work all year long. So it's been a strong process approach here at JCPenney. And as we've seen in just the past 2 years, I'll wrap up and finish up with some of the growth that we've seen in our modeled revenue. And so over the past 2 years, we've seen over $300 million of modeled revenue growth. And in addition to the modeled revenue growth, I think our overall return on spend has increased consistently year over year as well. And those are great headlines, but I think the most important part of this entire process and what we've implemented here is that we continue to drive improved value for the overall organization. We create confidence that we're optimizing our media dollars, and we've created, maybe most important to me, a curiosity culture among our media team where they're excited to kind of myth bust or have an open mind to trying new media channels. So as Jamie mentioned, we've used the media mix model to optimize channel mix, audience strategies. We've used them to optimize within publishers, within given channels. So I thought I'd leave you here today with just some key learnings that we've had over the past years. And only a caveat that this is specific to JCPenney, so it may not be the same for your organization, but represents, in my mind, some of the bold changes and unexpected moves that our media team was pushed to consider as a result of findings through our media mix model. And so within traditional media, we found more efficient ways to reach our customers. Newspaper circulars early on in media mix modeling started to show some low return on investments, and so it gave the team an opportunity to test and question into optimization. Our direct mail campaigns have continued to be fine-tuned, and the overall allocation of media dollars have optimized to a point where we've moved from a negative return media channel to now direct mail delivering a positive return on sales. We've also caught the changing landscape of linear and digital video early on. This was something that immediately started to show up in our media model refreshes years ago. It's helped us inform some of our improvement in our mix and make sure that we're not missing the opportunity and the right time to come into emerging media vehicles. The digital space is most interesting to me. We have a lot more measurement capability with last touch attribution to our site and to store. But the fascinating part of these channels is how our direct measurement KPIs in the media mix model didn't always line up. So as mentioned previously, this caused us to ask the question, why? And in performing actual A/B tests post the media mix model results, we were able to kind of clear up some of the data disparities, and we found that we were able to optimize opportunities that otherwise we might not have seen. So modifying our structure on affiliate channels, balancing our spend across social and influencers, and continuously mixing the balance between our search engine marketing and our CSDs were all driven as an output of continuous modeling. And lastly, we've established a cadence of budgeting and scenario planning that allows us to present opportunities for incremental marketing funding to the leadership team, as well as justify our continued investments in marketing. This has been critical for us here at JCPenney because it's really bridged that gap in understanding between marketing and finance. And it's become a tool that kind of speaks a common language and allows us to be able to continue to invest and optimize our media. So I know I've thrown a lot at you, and I'll leave you with three things that if you haven't already, I'd love for you to take the time to define some of the objectives and take inventory of your data and current state of future needs. For us, we started with a need to have a tool that could project or forecast the impact of total marketing on the company's revenue. It was a simple ask. We just wanted to know how much are we getting for the spend that we're putting out there. But through the years, we found that we've actually moved to a place where the media mix model provides deeper level insights into channels. It sparks conversation around curiosity of improvement. It keeps us current on the rapidly shifting media landscape. It gives us a tool to bring confidence across the organization, but it didn't start there. If you haven't caught on in the prior slides to my comment on share, I think it's super critical, and our organization has really helped us to leverage the data and be able to accelerate our growth here. And so if we held the MMM close to vest, I'd say I don't think we'd be as far along as we are today. And so sharing has allowed us to be able to learn as well as challenge our teams and challenge our thought processes and ultimately get us to a place of continuous improvement in media investment. And lastly, I'll leave you with play the long game. JCPenney, we've been doing this for many years, and I've been a part of it along the way. And I can tell you that from my experience, we're here today because of a longer view. And honestly, it's really kind of just getting started. We continue to optimize and continue to look at areas of curiosity through the lens of the media mix modeling tool as we continue to optimize going into even next year. So with that, I'll turn it back over. I think Christine, Jamie, that's the bulk of what I had to share here today.
Awesome. And we will jump right into our Q&A. We already have a few questions here in the chat in the Q&A module. I'm curious to understand how things like brand lift study results factor into an MMM.
Yeah, so it's actually interesting for us because we do brand lift studies separate from the MMM, but we have used those as inputs back into the MMM. I think I mentioned earlier on that we have kind of the two worlds that we play in, both performance marketing as well as brand marketing. And what I typically do in our team is we'll leverage the media mix modeling results as kind of the start of the conversation, and then bring in secondary data sources that we have to actually further refine our decisioning or our hypotheses. And so I think brand lift results is a good example of that. I'll also turn to some of our real-time KPIs like last touch attribution or in-market measurements. I mentioned direct mail earlier. We actually have a process where we naturally hold out a control group for all of our mail campaigns. So we're able to measure incremental sales across that media vehicle. And so whether we take that data and put it back into the model directly or use it as a conversation starter or something to help fill in some of the understandings of the model, we typically will bring them all to the table at the same time. Jamie, do you want to add anything else from other clients maybe even?
Yep. I'll add that, for clients where their primary KPI is something like revenue or return on ad spend, oftentimes they'll pull in those additional data sources like brand lift studies when it comes to how they are building out optimization scenarios. So they'll use those as inputs to help set different constraints in those scenarios, so that they know, for channels that might be stronger at driving that brand awareness or consideration longer term, that they'll kind of protect that budget within that optimization.
Awesome. And how long did it take before launching your initial MMM? And how long after that before you felt like you had a very refined model?
That's such a great question. The very refined model part of the question is the part that I'm stuck on because I kind of left off with. I think we're still refining. I think what we have today. So as Jamie said, we've been working with OptiMine for the last 5 years. The setup time for us was a little bit complicated by our data feed and getting our data feeds ingested. And so I think it was about you have to remind me, Jamie, like 6 months, I think, is what it took us to get it up and running and start getting initial results.
Yeah. We get up and running within a couple months, but that active refinement is, when we started, we were refreshing the model every month for JCPenney, which let us quickly start to pull in more data feeds and update those data feeds, so that it was kind of a constant improvement cycle.
Yeah, and I'll say that again, having been here for the whole run, the first update was informative and started the conversations. And so from the beginning, we've been using the data to inform our optimizations and our test plans as well. So.
And looks like we have time just for one more question. How do you decide what costs to include in the MMM? This includes both production, as an example, cost of creating broadcast versus online ads, and labor, internal versus agency.
Great question. And I think I'm gonna maybe take the easy way out on that. I think it's going to depend on what your objectives are and what you're trying to measure as your organization. For JCPenney, we just put our media costs in. We do not put any of our production costs into the model, and so we really focus in because we're truly using it as a working media optimization tool. We tend to keep the fixed cost or the non-working costs out of the actual media itself. So it does create, when we get into some of the budgeting and planning cycle, we have to do a little bit of the math to kind of get back to the total marketing budget, because we are representing just a slice of the total marketing spend that we have and not taking into consideration. I don't know, Jamie, if all your clients do it that way or not, but for us, it's just the working cost that we put in.
Yep. That's by far the most common approach.
Yep.
Awesome. And that will conclude today's session. Thanks again to Jamie and Bill for sharing with us today, and to all of our attendees for joining us.